Welcome back, Daily Show, 10:08. I'm early today, but that's okay. Keith Short and Associates, Keith Short in the building. How are you doing today, Keith?
I am very well, except for the cat bill from last night.
Oh, man, that would hurt anybody.
Yeah, in the middle of a snowstorm, we had to take the cat to an emergency vet. So.
Oh, no. It's always during the... It's never when it's 75 and sunny.
And it's never 2 in the afternoon.
No, it's like midnight.
11 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Well, and with that being said, before we start our normal segment, which we're going to talk about car accidents today and the ins and outs, and really just kind of what to do when that situation happens, wanted to ask you right off the bat about this verdict that you recently won. This is a pretty large verdict, $2.5 million.
Well, $2.2 million.
2.2, yeah.
Yeah, it was, we won it in federal court under what's called the Federal Tort Claims Act, and it's now a published decision. It was a 52-page decision from the judge. Wow. And basically, we had to prove that the physician that was working under the umbrella of the federal government was negligent in his response to this woman who is 39 weeks, 4 days pregnant. So she literally is ready to give birth.
Oh, no.
And she goes to an emergency or a women's pavilion and has a history of preeclampsia, and she tells them this doesn't feel right. They draw some urine, and she has what's called 2+ protein in urine, which suggests that she is about to have either preeclamptic or she's going to have some sort of other problems. Her blood pressure is elevated. All these things go on. There's a conversation between the nurse and a doctor, and the doctor's about 3 minutes away by his own admission. And he admits he never asks, well, what did the test results say?
Oh, no.
And he never asked. He just assumes the nurse is going to tell him everything. And I got him to admit that the nurse actually made the diagnosis, which is really problematic because nurses are not permitted to make a diagnosis. And then the real clicker was they hired an expert who I cross-examined, and the judge ultimately determined was not credible. And, the judge said, look, the doctor has a duty to at least ask what were the test results and because I got him to admit, had he been told there's 2+ protein in the urine, this, and this, had he asked the results and been told those, he would have known there's a problem. And it would have taken him 2 to 3 minutes to walk down there. And then I got him to admit that it's more probably true than not that had he done that, the baby would be alive today.
Oh, no.
And instead, they discharged her. She went home. She passed out. Her daughter called 911. They got her to another hospital, and the baby died in the interim.
Well, and we talk about this, multiple times before. No amount of money will ever bring anyone that near satisfaction of being a mother. But, that's the only thing that's unfortunately close enough to that is to make it somewhat right,
Well, yeah, and she has 2 other children.
Yeah.
And so she was really prepared for this child. So this money will actually help the other 2 children, and what people don't, and
it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, I actually had a really interesting conversation. My son wrote to me yesterday a message because some lady on Facebook had commented on, all this is about is money and there's no justice. And my son said to me that would have really angered him, and I said, no, it didn't anger me that she said that because I understand her point.
Yep.
Is like how is money going to change anything? Well, here's the thing: money is literally the fuel that drives the world, and it is the thing that changes people's behavior. They don't want to get sued. They don't want the reputation, but they don't want to have to pay this large sum. And what we pray is that if the number is significant enough, it will change the way they treat these things. From now on, I assure you, this doctor will never again not ask the test results.
I'm sure.
And the other thing is I said to the lady, I said, I'm always open to suggestions. What else could we do? Because we're not allowed to punish the physician, and we don't want to. We don't want him to not practice. He made this terrible mistake of a little bit of indifference. He's actually a very nice man. And we want him to learn from this and go forward, and we want the family to be compensated. And in today's world, millions of dollars, it's still fantastic amount of money. But when I was a young lawyer, I started at $22,000 a year.
Did you really?
Yeah, and those numbers have all changed. And by the way, the judge fixed that number based upon what other courts have done throughout America.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't based on some random thing. It was this is what the court system through the country had found. to be reasonable.
Well, and it's just really important to kind of discuss that because there's a check and balance to everything, and this is the check and balance to making sure that proper health care and proper things are maintained.
Yeah, I'll tell you something I did mention to you before, and I really hope that people listen to this. I found my client's response to the verdict to be really interesting because she was happy but not overjoyed, and she never asked me the number.
What?
No, I had to tell it to her, and she went, okay, that's great. And then I mentioned that the judge there was one area of law we could have theoretically gotten more damages for, and the judge had basically said, I'm not allowed to order this because we have to ask the Illinois Supreme Court what they would do.
Yeah.
And I told my client we could appeal that issue and maybe get more money, and her response was, I don't really want to do that. I'm not really interested in doing that. So the idea that she could have gotten even more money with her not having to do anything, I would do all the work. It just wasn't interesting to her. She wanted this victory, whatever the number was, and that was enough for her. And whatever it was enough. And I found her fascinating because a lot of people would say, okay, go ahead and try. Nah, she wasn't interested in that. She wanted justice, and to her, she got the justice, and that was enough. She still wasn't happy. She was just glad it was over.
100%. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting though to know, like, if you don't have a good partner on your legal matters, especially something like that, and you have, I hate to say it, but I'm sure there's instances of a rogue lawyer that goes, oh, you know what, this is what, and not saying they just go ahead and do it, but they really pressure that individual into, going to the next rung. It's really good to have that understanding and that really good transparency and relationship with your clients.
The opposite, though, is true. The opposite is, I've seen it many, many, many times where lawyers will sell a case short.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want the money.
Yep.
Instead of really getting to the ultimate responsibility, which is to ensure that there's not only a compensation, but maybe some change that is involved. And that only happens in a courtroom. But, the second interesting thing about this verdict I was mentioning to my wife the other day, this is our second verdict like this in 17 months, I think, or 16 months. And 99% of lawyers never have one. Yeah. And but it's all because this group of people I work with, they're just fantastic.
Well, they're hard workers. I mean, it's a machine.
Yeah, you've talked with them, and they're. The other night I was there at 5:40. I wrote something about it. It's 5:40 in the evening, and 6 of my people are still there. And no one's asked them to stay, but they have things that they want to get done. And the reality is, I think anyone will tell you, they get paid extremely well. And that's the trade-off. I'm going to take care of you, but we got an important job to do.
Well, that's what being a real team is, and I think that's so important, especially when someone's going through this, or maybe they're getting ready to decide, or you never know. You got to have if you have the best secretary in the world and the best, paralegals and the best, you're going to have a really great shot at everything that you're tackling.
Yeah, they are. I rarely ever say someone works for me. They work with me. Yeah, they were coworkers.
100%. And we're going to take a quick break with Keith because I just wanted to talk about that verdict real quick. But when we come back, we're going to start our 4th segment on our legal education series. We're about car accident cases. This happens all the time, and I mean, I've seen a little bit of some fun on the roads, and Keith, I'm sure that you have had a lot of interesting scenarios yourself. Yeah. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with more after this.
What's up? It's Mike Keith. What's up, bro? What's good, my guy? Back to spotlight other amazing alumni and how they discovered their path at Lewis and Clark. Let's jump into it. This is Dwight Wirtz, president of Wirtz Welding and Tank Service, the nation's premier distributor of tank trailer parts. Dwight has been an outspoken and long-time supporter of the college and is the current chairperson of Lewis and Clark Board of Trustees. Oh, and he's a Lewis and Clark grad.
I'm Dwight Wirtz, and I am a trailblazer.
Macias Insurance Agency, providing quality products with extremely competitive prices. As an independent provider, we source multiple companies to offer the best rates possible, covering auto, home, business, and life insurance. Our goal is to provide quality service that meets and exceeds customer expectations. You can rest easy knowing the Macias team is working round the clock to ensure that both you and the most important parts of your life are covered. Our qualified professionals make the insurance process easy so you can live carefree and focus on what matters most. Visit MaciasInsuranceAgency.com today to find out what our team can do.
You need someone in your corner, guiding you on your health and wellness journey. At OSF Healthcare, that's your primary care provider. Your OSF primary care provider is there for every stage of life. Find a provider today at osfhealthcare.org/primary.
Not sure if you've noticed, but those advertised prices from the other dealers are just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. At Roberts Motors, the advertised price is the price you pay. And that, my friend, is great news for you. Don't fall for their so-called incentives that will leave you banging your head against the wall. Go with Roberts Motors. Prices you can trust and people you will like. That's the Roberts Motors way. And trust me, it's the way to go.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank. The local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Tomorrow isn't built by dreamers. It's built by doers. Because progress doesn't work unless we do. So at Ameren, we've been hard at work putting energy to work for you. Adding underground cables, installing advanced switches and sensors, storm hardening poles and power lines, making the energy grid stronger today so it can meet your needs tomorrow. Learn about projects in your area at Ameren.com/energyfuture.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nassau, RiverBender.com.
7 packs of smokes, 6 packs of 245. And a beer.
Beer that hypnotizes people, right? Welcome back. Daily Show, Keith Short. We're going to start our official segment now. We're talking about car accident cases, but I'm glad to get some insights on that, just to know a little bit more of the backwork of what a case like of that size means and just what that breakdown looks like.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about that case is that same exact case happens in, say, a state like Texas. It's worth $250,000 because that's the cap in Texas.
That's so interesting. Wow. Did you ever think that's ever going to become a federal conversation where or is it always going to be a state matter on caps?
It should always be a state matter.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's a state issue. But anyway, car accidents.
Yeah, sorry, rabbit hole moment. So let's talk about this. So one time, I'll start it off. I was driving, this was hell, a long time ago, 10 years ago even, and I smacked into this lady's dented minivan right in front of a McDonald's, and I was, getting out of the car, and I was lucky because that individual did not need the police officers around them or to know that they were even driving that vehicle. So they said, go ahead and let's just call this a dented van, and we'll call it a lucky break. And we did. But in car accident cases, they aren't fender benders all the time. They're rough. They could be nasty. They could be pile-ups like you saw on 270 yesterday. What do you guys normally handle when it comes to car accident cases? Is it, as simple as a rear end, neck injury? Or is it more advanced forms?
Yeah, I mean, we've handled those in the past when I was a smaller firm on my own. And we still will. But I'll give you an example. Yesterday we were in Springfield, Illinois, and my a coworker of mine, Andrew, went up to cover a case for me. Now, it's just an interesting situation. We had a client who was hit by a church minivan. That this small church had bought this van to pick up parishioners, older and disabled parishioners, and get them to church. Girl causes an accident, and guess what? They don't have an insurance.
No way.
No, she doesn't.
It's a church.
Yeah, she doesn't have any insurance. And, they're a small church. And I went up there last month or 2 months ago, and I met with them. And the young girl showed up with her father as the pastor, and is a wonderful, wonderfully nice man. Oh, wow. And I said, look, nobody wants to harm you. Nobody wants to bankrupt you. My client was in this accident. And so I talked to my client about it, and I said, they don't have any insurance. And here's the problem. If you don't have any insurance in a small fender bender accident like that, 99 times out of 100, a lawyer won't touch the case.
I get it.
Yeah, because in the end, this is a business for us and we have to make money.
Yeah.
But the other thing is you don't want the law to be disproportionately punishing to a defendant. So in this instance, if we had gone, my client was entitled to between, say, $6,000 and $10,000. If we had, which is not a case I would normally ever go anywhere near, but a friend of mine asked me to do this, so I said I would.
Gotcha.
Up in Springfield.
Okay.
So I said to the client, if you got a judgment, and this is a tiny little church this man is trying to get going, I said, you are going to bankrupt this man or this church, or they could probably set up a payment plan, but do you really want to do this?
Right.
And she said, no, I don't. I said, I don't either, and I won't do it, so you'd have to have another lawyer. And then I talked to the pastor, and I talked to the daughter. I said, well, fortunately, our client isn't that injured. She's feeling better now. Her own insurance covered the cost of the car repair. Can you get insurance, please?
Yeah, that's a good start.
And there's
that's a good start.
And then I said, if you do that, we'll dismiss the case and we'll all go our own way. And he was like, would you really do that? And I said, yeah. I said, I have no interest in harming you. And the result would have been somebody would have had to file bankruptcy over a $6,000 or $10,000 case. No, I'm not doing that to anybody. So it all starts with there's got to be adequate coverage. And if there's not adequate coverage, that was one of the things we were going to talk about. There's a thing called underinsurance, and there's the thing called UIM, which is, that's underinsurance, and there's uninsured motorist coverage that you can buy in your own insurance that will protect you from people like this church.
Yeah. Well, and, I think, too, it's really good to note that there's a human element to everything. Mm-hmm. And, I think so many times, and I'm not saying that, I'm sure it happens. I shouldn't say I'm not. It just happens, is where you get somebody that maybe is already in a rough place financially, and they get hit, and it might not be the worst thing. You're banged up, a little bit, but it could have been much worse, mm-hmm. And then you see an opportunity type of thing. I'm not saying this happened in that case at all. Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm sure that's something that you have to manage as a lawyer for ethics, not in terms of, what the bar is going to say, but just moral compass, scenarios like this one, where it's like, do I feel really good about going forward with this, which, could be one, but for what cost?
Well, I will tell you that one of the first things we do is, does our radar go off? Is this person who's sitting across from me lying to me, exaggerating? And the reality is this will always come out. So for us as lawyers, we don't want that. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of our money. I had a case one time, a young man went to school with one of my kids, and he claimed that he was injured, and he injured his shoulder. And then in his deposition, he had never told us he'd had any shoulder problems. We find out he's had 4 dislocated shoulders, and he lied to us. And so in the middle of the deposition, I got up and walked outside with the other attorney, and I said, look, I'm going to dismiss this lawsuit if you don't seek costs against us or anything like that. And I went back in there, took my client aside, and said, you'll never, ever, ever win this because you lied. And you deserve to lose.
Exactly.
And he went away. And I said, and by the way, I told him, I said, look, you're entitled to go get another lawyer, but that lawyer eventually will call me and say, why did you drop him? Now, I can't say without your permission, but I promise you they're going to know I dropped you for a reason, and they're going to keep at it until they find out. So don't lie.
Yeah.
But
it all comes out.
It does happen. It happens a lot.
And, one thing, too, I'm sure that, and it goes into the realm, is not just having no insurance, and I'm sure that actually happened the day I was born. My parents got hit by somebody who had no insurance and took off on them. So, things like that happen, but underinsured vehicles. Like, maybe I have a beater that just has general liability or something happens. What do the underinsured instances look like? Are those even... something you touch.
And that's really fascinating. People don't quite realize this. They say, I've got $50,000 of underinsurance. So let's say you hit me and you've got a $25,000 policy.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And my policy carries $50,000 of underinsured. Yeah. So how much more coverage do I have? $50,000? No, $25,000. Because the law says I have to exhaust your policy, which is $25,000, so then I get another $25,000. But I don't get to go to trial over that.
Yeah, okay.
I have to go to arbitration, and that's a completely different scenario. Mm-hmm. And that's where an arbitration is your lawyer will pick a guy, like I get picked all the time, to be the arbitrator for other plaintiff lawyers. My friend Lanny picks me often. My friend Eric picks me a lot. So the insurance company picks their guy, and then the plaintiff lawyer will pick his guy, and then the two of us pick a third guy that we both kind of trust.
Okay.
And the 3 of us will sit and hear the case. So I get to decide somebody else's case all the time. Yeah.
No kidding.
That's how it works, and there's no jury trials or anything like that.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, is there a lot of misconceptions when it comes to car accident payouts and what they look like?
It's funny you say that. I looked it up the other day. I'm going to show you something.
I had to ask because it's like, what goes into the equation for a car accident claim?
Okay, I'm going to show you. The average personal injury lawsuit is not a car accident. Personal injury lawsuit is worth $26,000.
That's wow.
Yeah, that's the average. $26,000.
Is it worth it? And I hate to say it like that, but I mean,
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, it depends, to a lot of people. Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It is. When I was a young lawyer, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it is to them. And, the biggest problem, here's the thing. If I could tell anybody, this is the biggest problem, these small car accidents. The $25,000 coverage isn't enough. But here's the thing. Clients will call me and say, well, my car got totaled. Okay. Well, I still owe $10,000 on my car.
Yep.
And they tell me it was only worth $6,000. So they're only giving me $6,000, but I still have to pay this note and I have to get another car. Guess what? There's not much we can do.
And now, is that where we're talking about like a gap insurance? Okay, makes total sense.
Yeah, you buy your own gap insurance, and that'll help cover that difference. And assuming you don't have to get in a fight with them about what the gap is. But a lot of times you see these lawyers, they advertise, we can help you. No, they can't. They're lying to you. They can't help you that because the bottom line is you had a contract with your insurance company, and your contract said that they will pay you with a fair market value. And the fact that you're underwater on your car doesn't change the fact that they're going to give you fair market value. If that's $6,000 and you still owe $10,000, you're going to owe $4,000 on your car. You're either going to have to roll that into the next car you buy or make payments on that and buy another car.
Yeah.
Now, the only way that we could maybe help you is if somehow when we sue the defendant, we can squeeze out a couple extra $1,000 for this difference. But that's going to be a year down the road. So when they tell you this stuff on, you see these advertisements and, they make it sound like they can do something about that, but that's not true.
Well, and they make it sound like it's going to be done in 2 weeks, and we'll get you ready for Christmas, and that's just not the case. I have a question too. Mm-hmm. Whenever it comes to the cause of an accident.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that this happens quite a bit whenever maybe it's someone that ran a red light or someone was distracted.
Mm-hmm.
How far can you go to find out the distracted situation at hand if there is one, like, texting or even phone activity?
Yeah.
Does that, or Apple Watch activity now?
Yeah, we can get all that information. We can actually, they ask you in your deposition who your carrier was. They ask you for your phone number. They oftentimes will ask you to sign an authorization so they can get your data.
Okay.
And they can see if the accident happened at this time. And you can find that sometimes on the little box in your car, what time the accident occurred, because bags go off and stuff like that. And then they can compare that to your phone records. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, in a small fender bender, that's not going to happen.
Gotcha.
Because it's going to cost more to find all that data out than it costs to settle the case. But here's the thing they do. It's really fascinating. I tell my clients all the time, they will want to get you to give them specific numbers. The defense will. They'll say, how many feet were you away? Because then they're going to try and look at the time. They're going to look at stopping distance. They're going to say, were you too close? They're going to make it into a math problem. Or how many seconds elapsed from the time you looked up? And the answer is it should always be, I don't know, because I wasn't looking at my watch. I don't know. I can only kind of sort of guess, and guesses aren't allowed. So fair estimates are.
I want to go back to the value real quick, just to go into that a little bit more. But just a out there question: what happens if you're the passenger in a vehicle that gets totaled or you get injured? Do you have to have the driver of that vehicle go ahead and pursue that case, or does it become an intricate one because you have two separate injuries?
Yeah, you can actually sue the driver.
Wow.
And you can sue, which we see all the time because most people understand I'm carrying insurance for a reason.
Right.
You're not going to get money out of me. You're going to get out of the insurance company that I bought this and paid for it.
Yeah.
If I committed malpractice, one time my firm did.
Okay.
I don't know if I ever told you this. No. One time sure we did. Yeah. And for a lady over in Missouri, and I had a guy who was working with me on a case, and he completely botched something. I was on vacation. I come back and I see the notice and I go, we got a problem. And I call him up. He's another lawyer in Missouri, and he was co-counsel. And we went over to the lady's house and sat down, and I told her name was Linda. I told Linda this is what happened. She starts to cry. Well, I don't want to have to sue you. I said, I have insurance. I said, I think we can get this fixed in the appellate court. But if we can't, I've paid for all this insurance. I don't have any problems with this. And we went to the appellate court and we won. And we didn't win. I'm going to be honest about it. I hired a really good Missouri appellate lawyer, and he won it for me. Yeah. And saved my bacon, basically. I was going to use a different word, but And so I never had that happen. But my point is this. If I hit you with my car, I'd say, well, I pay for a lot of car insurance for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not personal. And anybody who thinks they're not capable of not looking up for a second and rear-ending somebody, everybody's done it. Yeah. Everybody, and you know, I love when people say, I never look at my phone in my car. Well, you're a saint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Mother Teresa.
And yeah. You know, I live in the real world, and we're not supposed to do it, and everybody's done it. And when you cause that accident, that's why you carry the insurance.
Well, and so just to clear, so if I'm a passenger and the driver of the vehicle I'm in gets into I could technically sue the driver of the vehicle I'm in.
If they cause the accident, sure.
Wow.
Or if the combination of the two cause the accident.
That's what I was curious. Could they technically sue both?
Sure can.
Very fascinating.
Yeah, and then it's between them to point the finger at each other.
Wow.
But again,
that gets kind of complicated, or it could be.
Here's the thing, though. If you come to my office and you say I was in this car accident, and I say, okay, well, what's wrong with you? And if there's not much wrong with you, I have no interest in your case.
I get you.
Yeah. Thank God there's nothing wrong with you. Go on with life.
1,000%.
Yeah. And there's no reason to sue anybody over that kind of silliness. You have to have a serious injury. I'm not interested in it.
And that would be, leading to a retirement or, from work and those type of things. Or, potentially?
Or real medical care. Okay. You got to have real medical care. I'll give you one of my favorites ones. Years ago, I had to go to trial on this for a guy named Sean. And it's a great case because a horse got on the highway, and Sean's driving home, and there's a horse there, and he swerves to miss the horse because he don't hit a horse, and he rolls his car, and he tears up his shoulder. His job is to hang windows in skyscrapers.
That's over.
Well, he got back to it. He was 28, but he ended up having a major shoulder surgery. Well, so it affected his life. Well, what's interesting was when we were doing the damages, Sean said, if they asked me about playing softball, I still play softball. What should I say? I said, you should say you still play softball. And I said, but how is it different? And he goes, well, I'm 28. And he goes, I have to go home now, and I have to ice my shoulder, and I take a bunch of ibuprofen. I still want to play. But I said, well, that's what you say. You say the difference is I'm only 28 years old. Before this accident, I could play 3 games in a weekend with no problem. Now, my shoulder has to be iced, and I have to take ibuprofen, and I know that I'm only going to be able to do this a little while longer. Just tell the truth. But that's a case where, people would say, well, goodness gracious, how is anybody responsible because a horse got on the highway? Well, you have to keep your animals contained. And this is not the first time this has happened with these people. I was able to prove it was the third time that their horses got. And what was really interesting was the lady who owned the horses was a sweet appearing older lady, and she took the stand, and she's about 75. So, I can't be hard to her, and she's tiny. And so I was gentle. And then I caught her in a little bit of a not so true thing, and another one. And then she got angry and started pointing at me. She did this,
Oh, my.
And I got to grab a pen. There was a lady in the front row of my jurors, and she's got a yellow pad. She's been making notes. And I catch this lady in such an egregious lie. This lady, you can hear it, clicks her pad, does this, sits it on the bar in front of her, and folds her arms and looks at her. So I walked over to Sean, and I grabbed my yellow pad, wrote down, "We just won." And I still have that piece of paper and I got goosebumps over it because it's such a great moment. And because this lady who seemed like just the sweetest she was actually really mean.
Yeah.
And I just, jurors are just there.
But if you act aggressive to the sweet appearing older lady, you're the jerk.
Oh, I'm a jerk anyway, but I mean, I really am. I really am. And they can see that I am. And no, you just give people a license. Just wait long enough, the truth will come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what was really beneficial in that, which is very rare, we found a young girl who had worked at that facility a year before, and she'd known this woman since childhood, and she took the stand and said, and cried, but she told the truth. She said, what she's saying isn't true.
Yeah, that's
isn't true. And she looked over, she goes, I'm sorry, but that never happened. I was there, and it never happened. And I felt bad for this girl, but she told the truth. And it's amazing what the truth will do.
Yeah. Well, and, it leads me into we've been talking for a little bit now, the mistakes that we can make right after an accident.
Yeah.
What's the first mistake?
The absolute first mistake absolutely is not reporting immediately everything that you can about what occurred. I mean, that means going to the doctor and saying this happened and telling them the truth, telling the police officer the truth. If there's a witness there, make sure that you try to get the identification of the witness, because that really matters.
Oh, yeah.
But, I'll tell you an interesting thing is it's very, very common for people to say, I'm okay. And they go home that night and their neck bothers them. And they wait a couple days, then they go to the doctor. So what happens is this is what the insurance company does. If you wait 2 or 3 days, they'll get a doctor who will say, well, if they were really injured, they would have gone right away. If you go right away, they'll find a doctor says, well, they raced to the emergency room so they could record this all. So the thing is, what you do is you just tell the truth. You don't exaggerate it. You do not say your pain is a 10 unless your femur is sticking out your leg. You just don't. Yeah. But, the key is this. They will try to give you, get a recorded statement out of you as fast as possible, because they're going to try to catch you in this. And they have a list of questions they're going to ask you, and they are designed to get you boxed into where you were looking and what you were doing and all those sorts of. We had a case where a young girl was actually in the emergency room, and the insurance company faxed her a settlement release for $2,000. She thought it was so that she could get medical care, and she signed it to settle her case for $2,000.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. With a traumatic head injury. And so I was able to go to court and get the judge, and what was funny is the defense lawyer knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at the judge like, yeah, and because the judge said, are you seriously going to try to enforce this contract? She had a head injury at the time, which means she couldn't have been
in the right place
to make this kind of commitment. And he says, well, all I can say is this is what happened. he didn't want it to happen. So the judge basically said, I'm gonna set aside this settlement. It's not valid, and that $2,000 case settled for $98,000 about 9 months later, because she actually did have a serious head injury.
Before I let you go, this could be a stupid question, but what happens if someone doesn't have insurance? They're driving. They don't make an infraction. Obviously, the infraction is you don't have insurance while you're driving, so that's step one. But let's say a semi-truck or a truck or anything runs a red light and completely negligent hits them. They get hurt seriously. They're in the hospital. Do they still have is there still no legal ground to sue because they don't have insurance?
No, you can sue.
Okay, so I've never understood that.
Yeah, you can sue in Illinois. Now, there are states like Missouri that will punish you for that.
That's what I was curious about.
And will limit what you can recover. But in Illinois, whether or not you've failed, here's a good example. Let's say that you're going 64 in a 55.
Okay.
And somebody, so you're clearly speeding, and somebody cuts you off and causes an accident. The very fact that you're breaking the law doesn't necessarily mean that you're in any way at fault. Because if you can show that, look, it wouldn't matter if I was doing 55, the outcome would have been exactly the same. There has to be a relationship between your infraction and the ultimate damage. So the fact that I'm not carrying insurance has no bearing on the fact that you harmed me. Now, do I think that's right? No, I kind of see the point Missouri has. Look, why do I'm going to benefit from the fact that you bought insurance.
Yeah.
But had it been reversed, you wouldn't benefit. I understand that. I really do. And so, I can kind of understand why people would say that doesn't seem right. Sure.
It's very fascinating. Yeah. Keith, it's always great to have you on the show.
I hope so. You never know. You hope.
This is great, man. I get a lot of insights out of this. It's good stuff. And to me, it's segments like this, you never know until you need to know the information.
Yeah.
And so hopefully if someone's watching today or tomorrow, whenever they do, they remember some of this. And whether it's giving you a call or at least just knowing the proper steps, you're helping somebody.
I will tell you the number one thing I would tell people to do is as soon as possible after the accident is make a log of everything that you can remember about it, because your memories fail over time.
Is a paper log valid, or does it need to be digital so you have the time stamp?
You can write it down.
Okay, really good.
Yeah, you can. I mean, they can challenge when you did it.
Yeah.
But they're never going to go anywhere with that.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating.
In fact, I think that may be better sometimes, because if you make a digital log, then they can theoretically get into your computer. Now, it would be prescribed and limited to searches related to that, but still, Yeah.
Good to know. Keith, we're going to talk again at the end of the month, I think, on the 19th. And then really just always great having you on the show. We'll link everything in a write-up on RiverBender.com. You stay there, and we're going to come back with the segment with the North Alton Godfrey Business Council next.